Are we ready to go?
The live stream is started, and I don't know if you want to wait for Commissioner Cox.
He can join at any time, so we have a quorum, so we can start the meeting.
Okay. Tech support is ready. You can ask Diana if it's okay.
I see Commissioner Cox's name. I believe that means he needs to be let into the meeting.
Are we ready to go, Mansoor?
Yes, sir, we are ready.
Okay, can we get rid of this coming up screen? Perfect. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Commission of Chicago Landmarks, the regular meeting. Today is Thursday, June 4th, 2020, and this is a virtual meeting. Let me start with a roll call. Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Hughes.
Present.
Commissioner Osmond. Make sure that you're say present for the record, Commissioner Osmond.
Present.
Commissioner Yakovich.
Present.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Present.
Commissioner Tolliver.
Present.
Commissioner Wong.
Present.
And I believe Commissioner Cox is joining us momentarily, and we do have a quorum. Before we start the meeting, I would like to make a statement regarding our current situation. I sincerely hope that we can overcome the pandemic that has affected the world, and also that we can find a way to eliminate the racial divide that we have experienced for a long, long time. The events of the last few days are very distressing. We all can contribute, not a little, but a lot, to make this a better country by taking the necessary steps to control the pandemic, by unifying this country to eliminate racial discrimination. We all can help and should do our part to achieve these goals. So I hope that the next day, the upcoming days, will see a better situation. As many as you may know, we are able to have virtual meetings due to the governor's suspension of certain portions of the Open Meeting Act. As you may also know, the General Assembly has recently passed a bill to amend the Open Meeting Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determined that in-person meetings of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its Permit Review Committee are not practical or prudent at this time. At this time, I do not believe that the amendments of the Open Meeting Acts have been signed into law by the governor, but in the event that I'm mistaken about this, I do want to make sure our virtual meeting meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, in the event the governor has signed Senate Bill 2135 into law and making a determination pursuant to the newly created Section 7E2 of the Open Meeting Act, that an in-person meeting of this Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its Permit Review Committee are not practical or prudent at this time. Second, pursuant to an ordinance adopted by the Chicago City Council, April 24, 2020, In response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, I, as chairman of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation, which were posted on the commission's website. In line with these emergency rules, today's regular meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its Permit Review Committee are virtual meetings being simulcast to the general public via live stream. The Permit Review Committee meeting will follow directly after this meeting at approximately 1:15 p.m. This is the second time the commission meetings have been held virtually. The meeting has been structured to minimize chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public were encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website. Those members of the public desiring to speak at today's meeting were required to register before the meeting, and verbal statements by the public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. Applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, were required to contact staff if they desire to speak, and they will be able to do so after the staff presentation on a specific project. At this time, all those who were provided instructions regarding how to speak at today's virtual meeting should follow them and be ready to speak. I will call upon you at the appropriate time. First, we would like to take public comment for item number 2 on the agenda, the preliminary landmark designation of a Slish Brewery Thai House at 9401 South Ewing. I will call out the names of the persons who have requested to speak. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes each. Let me call Mary Lou Seidel, who's registered to speak. Mary Lou? Mary Lou, are you able to speak?
Mary Lou, you can speak now. You're unmuted.
Let's see. Mary Lou, can you hear us? She may be experiencing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I was like, no, don't lock me out. I am speaking on behalf of adding the, thank you all commissioners, and thank you Commissioner Leon for your beautiful comments at the beginning of this meeting. I am in full support of adding the Schlitz Tide House at 9401 South Ewing into the Schlitz Tide House district. It is an extraordinary building, really intact inside and out. I just happened to be there last Saturday and got to see the boarding room on the second floor and the bar that looks like it's probably still from the 30s. The owners are really committed to the full restoration and reactivation of this space as a bar. And I think it would be just an extraordinary contribution to the landmark district as a whole. Its location near the entrance of the old steel mill entrance tells a story about what that community was and where it's going in the future. So I give it, with Preservation Chicago, give it a full endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Lisa DiChiara.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon.
This is Lisa DiChiara with Landmarks Illinois, and thank you for your comments, Chairman Leon. And I want to say I miss seeing all of you in person. You're like family. So nice to see your faces, at least on Zoom. Landmarks Illinois, of course, is in full support of the Schlitz Thai House and its recommendation as a Chicago landmark. The owners, Mike and Laura Medina, are very proud of the building. They bought it essentially to make sure the right thing happens to it. They have a wonderful story. They went from being customers of the tavern that was housed in this building by its previous owner for 40 years, owned by the same family. They went from customers to being detectives, because then it was sold to a unknown LLC, and they sought out to understand who those new owners were, who they eventually were able to find, and luckily negotiate to buy the building. They're also detectives from the standpoint of still searching down the original Schlitz stained glass window, which has not resulted in finding the window, but finding the original plans for the window from the stained glass studio that made it. And so, as you can see, they're very dedicated. They want to do the right thing. And I know Alderman Garza is in full support of their project. I think this is a wonderful nomination, not only because it really exemplifies an early commercial building of a working class neighborhood with the steel mills, and knowing how important a corner tavern was to employees after they got off their shifts. But there are not many designated landmarks in this ward. And so I'm very happy that we're looking at a building in this area of the city. And I think it really has a lot of pride for the community. So I hope you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Ward Miller.
Yes, commissioners, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and commissioners. I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago, and I also want to acknowledge your comments, Mr. Chairman. We all work very hard each day to make this a better city, and your comments are greatly appreciated. You should have some written testimony before you, a letter from Preservation Chicago, and we very much support the landmark designation of this Schlitz Tide House, located at 9401 South Ewing Avenue in Chicago by architect Charles Thislew. This is to join 5 other remarkable Schlitz Tide houses and 1 Schlitz stable that have been nominated or designated in 2011 that are across the city. And Thislew also designed a Tide house which is already protected. It's a Chicago landmark at 2159 West Belmont, which is also a Schlitz Tide house. So this is sort of a precedent, and it's wonderful to consider this building as a designated Chicago landmark. We too have been working closely with Mike and Laura Medina on not only this building, but also the reconstruction and the preservation of St. Gelasius, now called the Shrine of Christ the King, in the Woodlawn community. And we want to commend the owner, the Medinas, and also Alderman Suzanne Garza, and also the preservation staff and the city to consider this building as a designated Chicago landmark. We've all been working very hard towards this goal. And as Lisa just acknowledged, something that we've noticed is that there are very, very few landmarks in this ward and in this community known as the East Side and adjoining South Chicago. And we want to encourage exploration of more properties to be considered in the future for the Chicago landmark designation and honor, including one just down the street from this St. George Catholic Church at 96th and Ewing, which is about to close and be sold, and others. There are many others. So realizing that this was the heart of the steel industry in Chicago and a prominent component of this community, we'd really like to see more landmarks recognized in this area as part of a holistic plan towards its regrowth and reinvestment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ward. Gabriel Pimonte.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak. I'm speaking, of course, in support of this landmark. I think it's terribly important. I'm a Woodlawn resident, and I'm also the co-founder of Save the Shrine, the nonprofit that was organized out of the Coalition to Save the Shrine. I think the last time I was in front of this august body. It was arguing for preservation of that church at 64th and Woodlawn. And the Medinas were an essential part of that effort, bringing out the community, speaking on behalf of their neighbors, and they're terrific fighters for local landmarks in that way. I understand, of course, that the principal consideration when we're looking at these properties is their historic significance. But I also know, as a practical matter, you've got to consider whether or not these properties can really be preserved. And I can remember when we were fighting for St. Clara's, now Shrine of Christ the King, a very serious consideration in that conversation was whether or not we would be able to do it. I think it's terrific that Mike and Laura are making a commitment to this property because I know that they have what it takes to get it done. Not only that they'll commit the resources, that they will do this as a labor of love, but they also have a network of support, people like myself, and you see there are other preservation folk, including organizations that are coming out in support of not just the property itself, but also this really special couple. And I'm excited to see this happening, and certainly, those of us in their network of friends who know how important this project is to them will do what we can to make sure that it's successful. I urge you to approve this motion to landmark. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pimonte. That's all the speakers who signed up to speak for the commission meeting. However, we have also received written statements in support of the designation from Elizabeth Blasius, Eric Rogers, and James Pierce. Those has been posted on the CCL website for public view. Now we can go through the agenda, and the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting for the meeting of May 7th. The minutes were circulated to the commissioners, and if there are no changes, I will entertain the motion to approve them. Let me acknowledge that Commissioner Cox is also present. So if I could have a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th.
I motion to approve.
I move by Commissioner
Osmond.
do I have a second?
I would second it from Commissioner Cox, just to make sure I can be heard.
Yes, and I need to do a roll call. Commissioner Wong, you're muted. Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
Let me look down here. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Yakovich?
Yes.
And Commissioner Tolliver?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well as chairman. Thank you. The next item is the preliminary landmark recommendation for the former Schlitz Brewery Thai House in the 10th Ward. The property is located at 9401 South Ewing Avenue. And Daniel Kleiber will make the presentation on behalf of the department. Daniel?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Leon. I'm here today with a preliminary recommendation for the landmark designation of the former Schlitz Brewery Tide House located at 9401 South Ewing Avenue. Next slide, please. First, I have one background slide to show.
Yes.
Oops, we could go back one. Brewery tide houses, in a nutshell, were buildings built between the 1890s and 1910s that housed taverns that were directly owned and commissioned by larger breweries to sell
Yeah, I know.
produced by that brewer.
There's nothing.
In part, these tide houses were seen as more legitimate places to consume alcohol in the face of the rising opposition to it. There were other breweries that did this, but Schlitz had the largest number of them built throughout the city. Back in 2011, the Landmarks Commission approved a total of 9 such tide houses, One is technically a horse stable building for landmark designation, and they are depicted on the image in front of you. In 2017, the Tide House located at 9401 South Ewing on the far southeast side of the city, represented by the larger red star, was suggested to the program committee for landmark designation, and in 2019, it was suggested again by its now current owners, Mike Medina and Laura Coffey. To help orient you, the subject building is located at the southeast corner of South Ewing Avenue and East 94th Street in the 10th Ward and northernmost portion of the East Side community area. It is located just south of the Ewing Avenue Bridge that spans the Calumet River and just to the west of the former Iroquois Steel Facility, as well as Lake Michigan. Similar to the other Tide houses already designated, staff believes that the building on Ewing meets 3 criteria for Chicago landmark designation, including Criterion 1 for heritage. Constructed in 1907, the building represents the economic prominence of the brewing industry in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the role of ethnic immigration to and settlement of the city, and the national debate about alcohol consumption in the late 19th century and early 20th century, the dry movement, and ultimately prohibition. Staff also believes that the building meets Criterion 4 for exemplary architecture. The building is a distinct and recognizable type in Chicago's neighborhoods, typified by brewing insignia and located on a commercial street at a corner location. It exemplifies picturesque styles of architecture with its Queen Anne and Tudor Revival design, conveying a sense of legitimacy to the establishment. And it was designed by Charles Thislew, who designed several other Tide houses on behalf of Schlitz in Chicago. Staff also believes that the building meets Criterion 6 for its association with a theme. The building is part of a larger group of Tide houses and associated buildings in Chicago that together convey important aspects of Chicago and American history, including the rise of large, vertically integrated commercial enterprises that combined production and retail sales. In addition to the landmark criteria just discussed, staff believes that the building also meets the separate integrity criterion. The former Schlitz Brewery Tide House at 9401 South Ewing retains excellent physical integrity, displayed through its siting, scale, overall design, and its historical relationship to its surrounding neighborhoods. In conclusion, staff recommends that the significant historical and architectural features of the building be preliminarily identified as all exterior elevations, including roof lines of the building. You have a preliminary recommendation to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Commissioners, just as a reminder, you have the ability to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. If for whatever reason I don't see your hand raised and you still want to speak, please let me know and you'll have an opportunity to speak or ask any questions. Any of the commissioners have any questions for Dan at this moment? I see Commissioner Burns.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Dan, was I correct in hearing that the owners intend to redevelop this building into a bar, which was its original use?
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear you. Is your question their intent?
Yes.
I will let them speak with that, but their intent is to reopen the establishment as a bar in the not too distant future. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Burns, Mike Medina will speak in a minute. I just want to give the opportunity to the commissioners to ask any questions at this moment. I don't see anybody else raising their hands, so let's call on Mr. Medina for his statement.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to meet with you. We're very excited about this project that we undertook. and we're excited, and it's somewhat daunting, but I think a lot of what we are doing beyond bringing the use of the building back as a bar, we want to use it as a light to shine in the 10th Ward in this neighborhood. We've talked to longtime patrons and neighbors, and the amount of people who are very excited about this project and want to see this building saved are numerous.
Thank you. Will you identify your partner as well, please?
Yes, this is
Hi, Laura Medina, Michael's wife, also co-owner of the bar.
Okay. You heard the question that Commissioner Burns asked about the use. Is your intention to use it as a bar as well?
Yes, we really want to basically reopen it in the way it was used in the past, just to be a good community gathering place. You know, we want to kind of carry on the traditions of the East Side taverns, just to be a community spot that everybody loves to go to. We have a big room in the back. We're very similarly laid out to Shuba's, which is another Schlitz Tide House, and we'd like to be able to utilize that room for gatherings and things. And we hope to also renovate the side yard, which is attached to the building. Hopefully have some, you know, bocce, because that's a big thing on the East Side, are bocce teams and bocce tournaments. So we'd like to participate in that and as well, and really just have the bar be similar to what it was when it was the Bamboo Lounge, and before that, just a neighborhood destination that everybody loved.
What is the intended use of the second floor?
So the second floor in the front elevation, as you see in the first page of the presentation, that's an apartment that we are also in the early stages of renovating and perhaps getting it back to use as a residence. Then beyond the apartment, in the rear half of the building, there's a series of rooms it was used as a rooming house. So there's communal bathrooms at the front, toward the front, and at the rear. And then there's, I think there's 8 separate sleeping quarters with a long corridor connecting those. Each room is about 8 by 8, maybe just big enough for a bed. It's as it was built. There's been no renovations to it. So if you see one of these rooms, it's very easy to imagine somebody coming in from ship and staying in one of those rooms for a week, or, you know, however long, you know, a mill worker just needs a place to rest their head. We're not entirely sure what we need to do with that space yet, but we feel like we have time to figure that out while we do the work on the first floor and half of the second.
And the rooms are really actually some of the neatest features of the building. I love them. I don't know how they factor into modern life. You know, it's not going to be a boarding house, but they're really neat. It's a really neat space with the hallway and the rooms and the bathrooms, and the fact that it's been untouched is just, it's kind of a cool feature of the building.
So if somebody has too much to drink, they cannot go upstairs.
I mean, are there needs for inns these days? I don't know. I don't know if people still do that.
I'm just trying to be funny. So, okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Cox.
So can I be heard? I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Because I've had a bit of technical difficulties. I just want to commend the Medinas for taking on this project. It sounds like it's a true labor of love, and I'm just reminded of how often it's entrepreneurs like yourself that make this city go. These projects, this is, a challenging project, but you kind of wonder who's behind these efforts to preserve these incredible uses, incredible buildings. And I present to you the folks who do this work. And so I just wanted to make sure you understand how much we really value folks like yourselves who step forward and take on these individual projects, because that's what makes this city so worth living in. So just wanted to thank you for your work.
Well said, Commissioner.
Commissioner, that means a lot. Thank you, Commissioner.
And let's see, Commissioner Aguirre.
Just briefly as well, I want to second Commissioner Cox's comment. I think more than ever, it's important to invest in structures that represent history, specifically in our South Side neighborhoods, far South Side. So I really appreciate your, I'm sure, personal, but also business investment in this area of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns, I believe.
Thank you. I know this building and the block and the community, and it's really exciting to see the potential of what could happen here, especially the location is really unique and strategic in terms of its proximity to the river, to the lakefront, and the potential for this site to catalyze what is still a pretty divested community, but one that has lots of potential is really exciting. I'm also really pleased to see a nomination for a site that is, or for a ward that is underrepresented in terms of the number of designated landmarks. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner who would like to speak? You will have another opportunity after we hear from the alderman. Let me call on Alderman Susan Garza.
Hi, this is Maria Lazzaroni speaking for on behalf of Alderman Garza. She would just like to thank you for the consideration on the proposal landmark designation of the Schlitz Building, Brewery Tide House, 9401 South Ewing Avenue on the East Side community, in the East Side community. It's a beautiful building, and we would greatly appreciate all your consideration on making it a proposed designation landmark. Thank you.
Thank you for your support. Commissioners, last call for any other questions or comments. To the Medinas, I really congratulate you for doing this. And as you can tell, and we'll see in a minute, there is a lot of support for this redevelopment of this property. Thank you for doing this. At this time, I would like to call a motion to adopt the preliminary landmark recommendation to the City Council for the former Schlitz Brewery Thai House. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Sue Ellen.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Burns and seconded by Commissioner
Wong.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner, have to go down. Osman.
Yes.
Oliver.
Yes.
Aguirre.
Yes.
Yekovich.
Yes.
Wong.
Aye.
You seconded, I'm sorry. Tolliver. Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes. I previously said yes. Maybe it wasn't my name you called.
Okay. I apologize. I believe that I called everybody. So I vote yes, and the motion is approved. Congratulations and good luck.
I vote yes as well.
Who did I miss?
Commissioner Hughes.
Commissioner Hughes, my apologies. Sometimes it's difficult managing all the names here. Thank you. So the motion is approved. The next, congratulations and good luck again.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you to all the commissioners. Thank you.
The next item is the Permit Review Committee report for the project's review at the May 7th Permit Review Committee meeting. And the report on permit decisions by the commission staff for the month of May. And let me call on Commissioner Wong to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman Leon. The Permit Review Committee reviewed 6 projects at its May 7th, 2020 meeting. All 6 projects were approved with conditions. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions were included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me call on Larry Short for the report for the department on the permit decisions by the commission staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the month of May, staff reviewed 137 permit applications. 3 of these relate to projects reviewed by the Permit Review Committee. A total of 147 reviews were performed by staff. The average number of days to issue an approval or a correction was 3.7 days. And in that month, staff also reviewed 13 sign applications.
Thank you, Larry. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Larry? Okay, there being none, let's move to the next item, which is an amendment of the rules and regulations on the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. And Michael Gaynor from the legal department will make the presentation. Michael?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
If everyone can hear me. The governor has extended the state disaster proclamation, which among other things allows for virtual quorums at public meetings through the end of June. And as the chairman mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, the General Assembly has recently passed an amendment to the Open Meetings Act, which will allow for virtual quorums and virtual participation at public meetings during declared disasters, subject to certain conditions. It's expected that the governor will sign this amendment soon. Now, the city's April 24th ordinance, sometimes referred to as the emergency ordinance, which among other things authorized the chair of the Landmarks Commission to issue emergency rules regarding public participation at commission meetings, will soon expire at the end of June if it's not terminated sooner by the Commissioner of the Health Department. So the purpose of the proposed new rule for your consideration today is to authorize the chair to reissue similar emergency rules if another declared disaster occurs, without having to either 1, wait for additional city council authorization, or 2, hold an in-person special meeting, which could be dangerous during a disaster, for example, by violating shelter-in-place or social distancing orders. This is precisely the dilemma we faced in late March and early April. I should mention that the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Plan Commission also are expected to pass a very similar rule at their upcoming meetings. So please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Michael? I don't see anybody raising their hands. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
This requires a vote, so I would like to request a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to the rules and regulations on Chicago Landmarks, adding section F to Article 1. Do I have a motion? Moved by Commissioner Tolliver. Do I have a second?
Aye. Lynn Osmond, Commissioner Osmond.
Okay, let me call then Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Yekovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
And I don't think that I miss any commissioners this time. And I vote yes. Thank you. So the motion carries. And that's all that we have in today's agenda. However, before we adjourn, I'd like to open the floor for any commissioners who may want to make a statement. If you would like to make a statement considering the current situation, please raise your hand and you'll have an opportunity to speak. Okay. There be none, then I would like to request a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We're adjourned, and the Permit Review Committee will start probably in about 5 minutes. So my suggestion is